Welcome to Knowledgeable Aging. I'm your host, Jason Kotar. Join us today to talk about changing family caregiver dynamics, develop a long-term care plan, is Danielle Miura. Danielle is the founder of Spark Financials, a fee-only financial planning firm focused on serving the needs of the sandwich generation families nationwide. Danielle specializes in comprehensive financial planning, financial education, and tax law research. How are you doing today, Danielle?
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I am looking forward to our conversation. And so on that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So many people face long-term care without an actual plan. Those people usually have to rely on family members or the kindness of strangers to take care of them. That's why today I'm going to teach you how to develop your own long-term care plan. We're going to talk about why you need a long-term care plan and how you can create one. So why do you need a long-term care plan? So based on statistics, about 70% of people over this age of 65 need long-term care support. And about 60% of family caregivers have used their retirement or savings to pay for care for their loved ones. One fall, one diagnosis, one illness is all it takes for someone to need long-term care. In my family, all it took was one fall for my grandmother to need 24-hour support. Creating a long-term care plan lets you choose what type of care you want to receive, determine how you'll pay for it, and the peace of knowing that you have control over your future. So what steps can you take to develop a long-term care plan? Well, you have to answer two questions. How much you'll spend on long-term care, and that will help you figure out how much you'll pay for it. So the first question is, what kind of care do you want? Ranging from highest to lowest, aging in place is usually the most popular option that my clients have. Aging in place means that you want to die in your home peacefully and have long-term care at your home. Usually that requires hiring a homemaker, home health care, hospice care, or a family caregiver. And the most common way people think of long-term care is usually a facility or residential community. Usually that's assisted living facilities, continuing care retirement communities, or nursing homes. And then there's community resources, so nonprofits in your area, respite care, or adult care daycare, which usually is a part-time solution or temporary solution for long-term care. So what kind of expenses will be saved by utilizing long-term care? So if you're in a nursing home, it's very unlikely that you'll need to cover daily expenses. That will be covered by the nursing home. You also are unlikely to need to pay for as much traveling, entertainment, or food expenses that you would normally have right now. However, there's some hidden cost. If you decide to age in place, you probably will want to make sure that your house is handicap accessible. That means installing grab bars, a stair lift, or redoing the bathroom. You may also be nice and want to offer food to your care worker that's helping you, or you may be bored at home and want to keep yourself busy by going shopping or going out to eat. Location is really dependent on how much your long-term care will cost. So if you plan to relocate, look at the state that you're currently at or will be in the future and see how the average long-term care costs. For example, if you're currently living in California and you plan to move to Texas, Texas is normally has lower long-term care costs than California. So you have to evaluate that into your plan. Your family health history will predict what kind of care you want and how long you may need it. For example, if you have a family history of dementia or Alzheimer's, you may need a memory care facility rather than a regular assisted living facility. Or if you have a family history of having a long lifespan, such as like my family has a history about living to about 95, you may be more likely to need long-term care within your lifetime. So the biggest question that I discover with clients is, where is the money going to come from? That's always the big question. Americans, their largest asset is usually their home. So how can you utilize your home to do long-term care, to pay for long-term care costs? You can sell it, you can refinance and pull the money out of your home, or you can utilize a reverse mortgage. Just like we've seen in 2008 with the market crash, and slowly the housing market is going down right now, you may have difficulty selling your home if there's a market crash. And you also, as you've seen, the interest rates have increased, and that may make it more difficult for you to get either a reverse mortgage or get a pull money out of your mortgage. And you may just simply not have enough equity in your home to cover long-term care costs. The second largest assets usually Americans have is your retirement savings. The challenges with using your retirement savings is that you need to calculate ahead of time how much you'll need. Save a portion of your income, either monthly or yearly, however you decide, and then you need to accumulate enough to not only cover long-term care costs, but also beat about 4% yearly inflation. There is also risk, just like the housing market shifts, the stock market shifts as well. So if the market is down when you need the money, you may not have as much money. Also, if you're withdrawing from a traditional retirement account, such as an IRA or 401k account, you may have a larger tax bill. So simply, if you don't prepare, you most likely will not have enough money. The most tax efficient way to pay for long-term care is through a health savings account or an HSA. This has what's called a triple tax benefit. Your contributions are not taxed. Your contributions grow tax-free, and they are tax-free when used for medical expenses. The downsides is that you're limited, because it's a tax-efficient account, you're limited as to how much you can contribute to your account each year, and you need to have a high deductible healthcare plan to qualify. Here are some of the other ways you can supplement long-term care costs, such as dividends, rental income, royalties, or annuities. This provides a fixed or variable payout depending on your contribution. The problem with getting a royalty or annuity is that you have to really make sure that you read the contract before buying. So the most common way to cover long-term care expenses is through long-term care insurance. It is the most expensive way to get long-term care and get coverage. However, because it is so expensive, it is usually the most safest bet to preserve your wealth. However, not everybody is going to be accepted for a long-term care insurance plan. So if you're above a certain age or have pre-existing health conditions, you may not be able to apply for long-term care insurance. Plus, there's a waiting period of usually 90 days before you can start the coverage, and there's also a maximum coverage limit. There's a big myth that Medicare covers long-term care. Unfortunately, it only covers about 100 days of coverage, usually prescribed by a doctor after you've been in the hospital for at least 2 nights. Medicaid is the only government entity that covers long-term care costs, and that's for people who have low income and asset levels. Please check your qualifications in your state to see if you meet their guidelines. So now we're going to go over some case studies to give you an idea of how much your long-term care would cost. So in the first situation, Sally is a widow who lives alone, and she's battling signs of dementia. Her family has decided to put her into a memory care facility, which costs on average about $5,400 per month. Based on the average length of stay for females, which is more than males, Sally will likely pay over $200,000 in total. John is a single 50-year-old individual who lives in Texas, which is one of the cheaper states in the United States. He decides that he wants to be put into a nursing home, which averages about $5,800 per month. So his total cost will be about $254,000 if he starts care at age 65. Bob and Jane are 60. They live in Hawaii, which is one of the most expensive states in the United States for long-term care. And they decide to age in place. To get a care worker to take care of them, it will cost about $266,000 in total. So what if you can't develop a long-term care plan and you need long-term care tomorrow? Here are some steps you can take to analyze your situation and find a way to pay for long-term care. So first, take an inventory of all your assets and see if you meet the Medicaid requirements of your state. If your income is too high, don't worry as much. A lot of states have a provision that based on your income will depend on how much they'll cover you for Medicaid. So for example, if your monthly income is $3,000 and your cost of long-term care is about $8,000, they'll cover the difference. The main focus should be making sure that your assets aren't too high. And then understand what care you can afford. So for example, if you decide that you want a nursing home and that costs $8,000 per month and your assets are about $200,000 in total, that will cover you for about 25 months. If money is tight or you're waiting on Medicare to be accepted into Medicare, these are some of the steps you can take to make sure that you get long-term care coverage. You can take advantage of community resources and nonprofits in your area. You can hire a family member to take care of you, or you can hire a part-time care worker. You can ask your doctor to prescribe a nurse or a physical therapist to come to your house once a week for an hour to take care of you. You can take advantage of technology like pill dispensers or baby cameras. And then working with a financial advisor can help you ensure that you're utilizing your resources wisely. So to conclude in the presentation, before deciding on a long-term care plan, these are the 3 things I would think about. If you want to rely on the government for resources, consider your state's qualifications and the financial implications of spending down your assets. If you plan to rely on your assets or insurance to cover, it should be methodically thought out, and please read the contract. If you decide not to make a long-term care plan, you may have to pay everything out of pocket, ask a family member to take care of you, or rely on the kindness of strangers.
Is there a proper way to begin to have conversations with family when it comes to long-term care, or when should these conversations happen?
So usually I start having conversations with clients about long-term care, usually in their mid to late 40s. And then I start planting the seed. And then as the years go on, that's when we discuss it more. Some financial professionals discuss it early because you never know what's going to happen. But usually those are the guidelines. Start communicating with your family or developing your plan as soon as you can. And at least you have something in mind, a plan in place. And if it happens to you, it happens to you. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah. So how often should somebody review, whether it's an individual or family or multiple people in a family, should they be reviewing their long-term care plan?
I usually suggest once a year. So, and usually that's wrapped in with estate planning as well. So I review their estate plan, make sure that everything's in there, that's exactly what they value and what they want. And then I review long-term care at the same time because usually those go hand in hand.
Yeah. So you work with the sandwich generation families nationwide. I'd love
Mhm.
to, if you could talk a little bit about what sandwich generation is and the importance of the work that you do with them.
Yeah, so I started as I said previously, my grandmother fell on tile in front of her front door. And that's when I became a family caregiver. I have a child that's 3, and I'm taking care of a elderly family member. So that's usually what coins the term of sandwich generation. It's someone who's taking care of either an adult child or a younger child, and then an aging older adult.
What are, when you first have discussions with, let's just stick with the sandwich generation, what's the one major takeaway from them as far as things they need to think about before meeting a professional, or what is a common mistake that they make when it comes to this?
So caregivers in general have usually 3 stages. Usually it's the, something dramatic happened in their family. Like for me, it was, my grandmother falling, which we didn't, no one can expect when someone falls, or it could be an illness. And that's when they start their caregiving role. Most people do not plan to be a family caregiver. It just ends up happening. And then it's the duration period of being a family caregiver. So how can I prepare myself while I'm a family caregiver to protect myself? That's usually placing boundaries, financial boundaries. That may be creating a financial contract with your loved one so that there's a budget for you and a budget for them, keeping your finances separate. And then it's maybe your credit score is low. And so you want to have that time during your caregiving timeframe that you can take care of yourself in your financial health. So that may be increasing your current credit score, building skills, watching videos online to educate yourself. And then it's after the caregiving process, the grieving process of finishing your job as a caregiver and grieving that time of just finding some place to either put the state, or maybe your loved one didn't leave you a state, trying to figure out your life as a non-caregiver.
When it comes to caregiving and long-term care planning, how many individuals is it recommended to be involved with this plan? Obviously, is it the individual that you're taking care of? I know you said you review it once a year, but how many individuals need to be a part of this planning when it comes to this loved one?
Depends on how many people need to be a part of part of the plan. Usually if it's just, it can be the individual. So either the pre-retiree, the adult, or an elder adult. It could be their family. So right when I create the estate plan or the long-term care plan, I tell all my clients, please sit down with your family. Usually that's during the holidays. Usually that's when people most get together, and have a conversation about what you want. So there's no questions and they know exactly how to take care of you. If it gets to the point where they're already a caregiver, then it's probably the caregiver, the loved one, the aging loved one, and it could be another family member, whoever the aging loved one would choose.
Yeah.
Your
So if
financial
someone,
professional or somebody else that works with them closely.
so I want to talk about the care team, if you will. So in this situation, we're not talking just about healthcare, but you had mentioned, obviously with what you do in the financial realm, who else should be involved in this care plan from a professional perspective? And then we just talked about who in the family, but professionals, who do you recommend as part of this team?
It depends on who they're currently working with. So for someone, it can mean an elder law lawyer. It could be a financial professional, either a CPA, a financial advisor. It could be someone who works at a nonprofit that's really heavily involved in that aging loved one's life. So it could really be a multitude of people. It could be, the caseworker you're working with Medicaid. So it really just depends on who that person has already contacted or who they're involved with. And that should be labeled on a contact list in their estate plan.
Yeah. So if someone wants to age in place, Danielle, what are the first steps you would suggest to create such a plan?
So at first, what I do when I meet clients, I meet people virtually and in person. But if I meet them in person, it's me snooping around their house a little bit. I'm not saying that I look through their drawers and stuff like that, but I'm analyzing their home. What does it look like? Is it handicap accessible? How can we make it handicap accessible? Does it have a first floor and a second floor, or does it have just a first floor? Is the master on the first floor if they have two stores, like two floors? So there's a lot of details that are involved with analyzing someone who wants to age in place. And then, as I've said before, aging in place, especially if you want 24-hour care, is the most expensive form of long-term care. So you might have to adjust the hours of how much you need care in order to afford it. Such as if you have a partner, you may want them to help you during the night rather than a care worker.
How does the care plan that you put together differ if it's not aging in place and they need to go to assisted living, memory care, et cetera? Does that plan, how different does that plan look when it comes to, from your perspective in the financial realm?
So in that case, if they decide, I don't want to age in place, I want to go to a facility, then it's a question of, it's much easier. It's more of like how, what will we do with your home if you need permanent long-term care? If you need permanent long-term care, if you plan to be in the nursing home for, more than a couple years and you don't think that you'll need the home, then you can utilize your home as a wealth source for paying for costs. I think the most difficult thing with planning for facilities is not the finances. Well, finances is a big one, but it's actually determining which one you choose. A lot of people, right, especially right now with how things have been with coronavirus, a lot of the facilities are not as equipped to take care of people's loved ones as they once were. So there's less staff members. Like my loved one, when they were in a nursing home, they waited 45 minutes to get help. And that's like ringing the buzzer every 10 minutes to try to get someone to help them. So it's not, the service is not like what it used to be. And so that's a big factor in my mind when talking to clients. Like, by the way, it might be that, these things may happen to you if you're in a nursing home or assisted living. It's something that they need to keep in the back of their head as thoughts of, if I choose this care, this is maybe this service that I receive.
Absolutely, absolutely. So for individuals, when you're developing a long-term care plan, does it need to happen in person? Can this be done virtually? Obviously, Zoom and those other online platforms have really risen during COVID, but is this made financial individuals that made their job a little easier?
Yeah, so just like at my firm, I work with people online and locally, in person. So you don't necessarily need someone to be local to help you create a long-term care plan.
Okay. Um, Long-term care insurance. What should people be thinking? You had mentioned there are some guidelines. Is there a general rule when it comes to a certain age as far as when long-term care might not be available, or is it based just off of those other issues like, pre-existing conditions, et cetera?
Yeah, so there is an age. I would be really careful about getting premiums past age 65, just because the premiums are going to be much more expensive. I'd also consider your pre-existing health conditions. You may disqualify yourself just based on your health condition. The other thing is, if you're, I believe, 80 years or older, you just may not flat out qualify. Or if you already, like, if you're expecting to need long-term care tomorrow, you won't qualify either. They're very selective about who they allow to have to apply and for insurance. They're an insurance company. They're out to make money. And that's why people need to be careful and read their contracts thoroughly. And hence why I'm a fee-only firm. Fee-only means that you don't sell any investment products, you don't sell any insurance products, you do not take any commissions. So I don't take any commissions from third parties. I'm essentially I charge a flat fee to work with clients, and I just like a lawyer, they get paid hourly. I get paid a flat fee to help my clients and create a financial plan with them. What's special and unique about my firm, not only is it fee only, it's also advice only. So advice only means that I don't manage assets. So I don't control anybody's assets. I don't make any decisions for them. My job is to provide financial advice to my clients, and whether they take my advice is completely up to them. I look at all different long-term care options, just like we did today, and we together with the client discuss, what are your options and what can you use, what assets can you utilize to create a long-term care plan. And then I get quotes from a bunch of from an insurance broker, and I discuss how those quotes and those premiums will affect their life. The last one I got for a quote was like $600 a month. And so that's a lot for someone to pay, $600 a month for the rest of their lives. That's a huge commitment to pay for long-term care insurance.
Is there a common mistake people make when it comes to Medicare from your perspective financially? Is it just research? Is it not knowing the products? What is from the Medicare perspective when it comes to planning that you see?
So the biggest, as I said in the presentation, the biggest myth is that Medicare is going to save you.
Okay.
Which Medicare is only meant to help your health needs. It is not there to help with long-term care. Medicaid planning is much more challenging, and you have to be very selective about what assets you choose to, do you decide to either put your money in a retirement account rather than in a taxable investment account? That will make a huge difference in what qualifies you or disqualifies you from Medicaid. So there are some planning, there's like some spend down planning you can decide to do. I think there was also a presentation that you did, Jason, with one of your other speakers that discusses it more. But just making sure everything needs to be planned ahead of time. If Medicaid is your solution for long-term care, it has to be, you have to read the qualifications and match the qualifications and make sure that you can qualify, essentially. If you'd like to reach out to me, here's my website. It's www.spark-fin.com. And my email is D as in dog, M as in Mary, @spark-fin.com. And if you would like to follow me, I'm on Twitter as Danielle, DANIELLE, Miula, MIULA, and LinkedIn and TikTok.
As far as knowledgeable aging, you can find us on our website, knowledgeableaging.com. There you can see all of our upcoming and archive webinars. You can go to YouTube. I encourage you to subscribe. We update that several times per month. If podcasts are your thing, you can go to Spotify, Apple Tunes, etc. Till next time, I'm your host, Jason Kotar, and this is Knowledgeable Aging.